The alien fleet drifted into the cold silence of deep space, their ships shining like silver knives against the endless black. They had tracked a strange signal to this sector, and now they found it, a single human battleship, floating quietly, motionless as if abandoned. The alien commander, a tall figure with scaled skin and burning red eyes, leaned forward in his chair. His voice was sharp, filled with mockery as he stared at the human vessel on the screen. "So this is what humans call a warship," he sneered. Around him, his officers chuckled. "Humans are new to the stars. They know little of real power. Let us see what toys they carry." Laughter rippled across the bridge as the ship's scanners were powered up. The aliens believed this was nothing more than an easy inspection. The science crew began preparing the scanning systems. Their hands moved swiftly over glowing consoles, feeding commands into machines that had scanned thousands of vessels before. The alien fleet had conquered worlds, destroyed armies, and humbled species far older than the humans. To them, this was nothing more than a routine curiosity. The human ship appeared bulky, clumsy, and small compared to their sleek and elegant cruisers. One scientist smirked as he adjusted the power levels. Primitive design. Steel wrapped around engines. Nothing more. Another joined in, laughing. Yes, their weapons are probably like children's fireworks compared to ours. This will be quick. Energy surged through the alien scanning devices, golden beams preparing to sweep across the human vessel's hull. On their screens, the first outlines of the ship appeared, long, angular, covered in armor plating. It looked heavy and slow, a relic from another age. The aliens leaned back, relaxed, certain there was nothing to fear. But the moment the scanning waves touched the human ship, something unexpected happened. The lights across the alien science deck flickered violently. Consoles sparked. Alarms screamed in a chorus of chaos. Data screens that usually glowed with stable green lines suddenly went black. Technicians shouted in panic, their voices sharp with confusion. "Systems are failing. Reboot protocols." Another yelled, "We lost visual feed." The scan collapsed. The entire room shook as if invisible hands had gripped the ship and were twisting it. The crew staggered, their confidence evaporating in an instant. The commander's eyes narrowed. He had seen many things in battle, but never this. His voice cut through the panic like a blade. "Report. What happened?" The chief scientist scrambled to explain, his scales trembling. "Commander, the moment our scan beams touched the human hull, our system glitched. It should not be possible. No ship should block our technology like this." The energy returned as noise, as static. Something scrambled the signal. His words carried fear, and the bridge went quiet for a heartbeat too long. The commander turned his gaze back to the human ship, still floating in silence, its dark hull reflecting nothing. It had not moved. It had not fired a single weapon. Yet his fleet, armed with the finest technology in the galaxy, had just been blinded. "This is no ordinary vessel," he muttered under his breath. For the first time, the mocking smile was gone from his face. The crew tried to recover their systems, but the chaos only grew. Screens turned on for a moment, only to flicker out again. A strange humming noise began to echo through the comms, low and steady, almost like a heartbeat. Some of the younger soldiers shifted uncomfortably, whispering to each other. "It feels like it is alive. No ship can do this." Fear crawled across the room like smoke, invisible but heavy. The commander's second-in-command, a sharp-minded officer with pale eyes, leaned closer to him. "Sir, we should consider pulling back. This ship, it does not behave like the others we have faced." But the commander's pride flared. He slammed his clawed hand against the console. "Nonsense. It is one vessel. One human craft. Do not tell me our fleet fears a single silent warship." His words rang with power, but his tone betrayed a trace of doubt. On the viewing screen, the human battleship loomed larger. Its design was rough, blocky, but there was something unsettling about the way it simply drifted, showing no signs of weakness. It was like a predator pretending to sleep, waiting for the right moment to strike. The silence of the vessel screamed louder than any weapon. Suddenly, one of the consoles came back online. The scientists gasped as strange data scrolled across the screen. But it was not alien script. It was something they had never seen before. Symbols, codes, and fractured signals flooding their systems as if the ship was pushing its own language into their machines. The crew froze, staring at the unreadable text. "It is feeding us something," whispered one of the younger technicians, his voice trembling. "It is sending information to us." The scientist slammed his fists on the panel. "That cannot be. Scanned vessels cannot respond. They are not supposed to know we are even probing them." The commander's face darkened. He felt the air grow colder around him, the weight of an invisible gaze pressing against his mind. Slowly, he leaned back, his eyes locked on the human vessel. He had mocked it minutes before, but now his instincts screamed at him. Something was wrong. Something was deeply wrong. The silence stretched, broken only by the low hum still pulsing in the comms. Then, one of the technicians spoke in a voice barely louder than a whisper. "Sir, the ship is not silent. It is watching us back." The commander said nothing. He could feel it too. The human battleship, drifting so still in the endless dark, was not prey. It was a predator. And his fleet had just stepped too close. The silence inside the alien fleet felt heavier than space itself. The crew on the flagship struggled to steady their systems, but nothing worked the way it should. Screens flickered back to life only for seconds, then collapsed again into darkness. Strange static filled the comms, whispering like 1,000 broken voices. The commander sat rigid in his chair, claws tapping the armrest. His officers avoided his eyes, but he could feel the fear spreading through them like a disease. At last, one of the consoles stabilized. Data returned in fragments, strange symbols flashing across the screen. The science crew leaned in, their faces pale. One scientist shook his head violently. "This is not possible. The ship is sending us information." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Explain." The scientist swallowed hard. "When we scan another vessel, our beams are meant to penetrate the hull and bounce back. But this human warship caught the signal, twisted it, and pushed it back at us in the form of code." He pointed at the glowing symbols scrolling across the monitor. "It is not interference. It is deliberate." The crew murmured nervously. One officer muttered, "A ship cannot do that. A ship does not think." Another whispered, "Unless it is alive." The words struck the room like a cold blade. For a moment, no one spoke. The commander's jaw tightened. He refused to believe in myths or fear. "Ridiculous," he spat. "It is nothing but human trickery. Translate the code. I want answers, not cowardice." The scientists worked quickly, rerouting the data through the fleet's strongest translation cores. Symbols shifted, changed, and slowly began to form words in their own tongue. The crew leaned forward, hearts pounding. The first word appeared on the main screen, glowing bright and sharp. "Leave." The bridge froze. No one moved. No one breathed. The single word sat there, heavy with a force no one could deny. A technician whispered, "It knows us. It speaks to us." The commander tried to laugh, but the sound was dry and forced. "A scare tactic. A bluff. The humans think a single word will frighten us." He slammed his hand against the chair. "Send another scan. This time, full power." The scientists hesitated, their hands trembling above the controls. One dared to protest. "Sir, if we push the scan again, it might trigger." "Do it," the commander roared. His pride would not allow retreat. His fleet outnumbered this lone ship 100 to 1. He would not let a single word break them. The power surged again, beams stretching across the void toward the silent battleship. For a moment, the scan seemed to work. Hull outlines returned. Metal plating, engine cores, structural frames. The aliens smirked nervously, relieved that order was restored. But then the data twisted again, warping into unreadable lines before forming another message. The letters burned across the screen, simple, clear, and undeniable. You were warned. Suddenly, the flagship shook violently. Lights exploded, consoles burst with sparks. The fleet's smaller ships screamed warnings over the comms. Systems failing. Our shields just collapsed. Weapons are offline. The entire armada trembled under the invisible weight of the human ship's presence. The commander gripped his chair, his eyes wide now with the fear he had tried to bury. His second-in-command shouted, "Sir, it is attacking without firing a single shot. It is inside our systems." Across the viewing window, the human battleship began to stir. Slowly, impossibly, its massive cannons shifted, glowing faintly with energy. The alien fleet braced, certain destruction was coming. Yet no shot was fired. The ship remained still, silent, but its presence pressed against every mind, every heart, filling them with dread. Why does it not fire?" one soldier whispered. Another answered, voice shaking, "Because it doesn't need to." The commander's scales prickled as he stared at the vessel. Pride fought with terror in his chest. His voice cracked when he spoke, softer this time. "It is watching us." He knew now this was not a bluff. The human ship was not defending. It was warning. The static in the comms cleared suddenly, and one final word echoed across every ship in the fleet. The voice was cold, mechanical, and yet filled with something disturbingly human. "Last." The bridge went silent again. The crew stared at their commander, waiting for his orders, their faces pale with fear. The word burned in their minds. Last. The last warning? The last chance? Or the last breath they would ever take? The commander swallowed hard. For the first time in his long career, he did not know what to do. He had mocked the humans. He had laughed at their so-called primitive ship. Now, as he stared into the endless black, he wondered if the galaxy had underestimated a species that built war not only with steel and fire, but with something far more terrifying. The battleship floated silently once more, its cannons still, but its gaze unbroken. The alien fleet hung frozen, afraid to move, afraid even to breathe. Every second felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for the ground to give way. The commander finally spoke, his voice low and strained. "Maintain distance. Do not provoke it again." His words surprised the crew, but no one argued. They felt it too. The warship was more than metal. More than a machine. It was alive. And it was warning them. Suspense tightened the air as the fleet drifted, their scanners dark, their courage fading. They had tried to peer into the heart of humanity. Now they understood why so many whispered that humans were different. Dangerous. Unpredictable. The commander leaned forward, staring into the void. His pride had been broken, but his mind sharpened with one terrifying thought. If this was only one human ship, what else was waiting in the dark? The alien fleet drifted in uneasy silence. The human battleship floated in front of them like a dark mountain in the void, silent but alive, its presence pressing into the minds of everyone who dared look at it. Fear was spreading across the ships faster than any virus. Soldiers whispered to each other in secret channels, their voices trembling. Some called the human vessel cursed, others said it was a ghost ship built from the souls of dead warriors. No one laughed anymore. On the flagship, the commander paced the bridge, his claws tapping against the steel floor. He had never seen his crew so restless. Discipline was breaking, and he knew if fear grew unchecked, his fleet would fall apart before a single shot was fired. He turned sharply to his officers. "Control your men. Silence their foolish rumors." But even his own voice lacked its usual strength. The second-in-command, pale-eyed and calm, leaned close. "Sir, the crew is not lying. I can feel it too. That ship is more than a machine. It is watching." The commander's jaw tightened, but he gave no answer. Pride held his tongue, but doubt gnawed at his heart. On the science deck, the technicians dared another attempt to scan, this time using their strongest technology, an advanced pulse that had mapped even the deepest secrets of enemy warships before. The commander gave a slow nod. Do it. Show me what hides inside that craft. I will not let fear rule us. The pulse stretched across space, glowing like a wave of fire as it washed over the human battleship. For a moment, the data came back clean. Hull plating, cannons, engines, it all looked normal. The crew leaned forward, desperate for answers that would calm their fears. But then the readings changed. The data spiked, strange and wild. Energy levels rose higher than anything their instruments had ever recorded. One scientist gasped. This cannot be right. The core output, it is beyond any known limit. It is like a star trapped inside the hull. Another shouted, Look here. Chambers, rows of them, glowing with energy we do not recognize. His voice shook as the image sharpened. These are not weapons. They are something else. The commander's claws dug into the armrest. Speak clearly. The scientist turned, his face pale. Sir, this ship is not powered only by machines. There are minds inside. Human minds. The room froze. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then another scientist whispered, almost in horror, They have merged themselves with their ship. They have become one with it. Gasps filled the bridge. Soldiers muttered prayers in fear. Some refused to look at the screens, as if the very sight would curse them. The commander felt his stomach twist. You are telling me this ship is alive? Yes, the scientist whispered. Alive, and aware of us. The commander turned to his crew. For the first time in his long career, he saw raw terror in their eyes. Soldiers who had fought countless battles now looked like children staring into the dark. Pride burned inside him, but he knew he was standing at the edge of something his empire had never faced. Across the fleet, the whispers grew louder. Small ships began to drift back, their captains refusing to stay so close. We will not die here, one voice crackled over comms before being silenced. The commander slammed his fist down. Hold position. Anyone who retreats will be executed. His voice thundered, but deep inside, he knew fear was stronger than his threats. Suddenly, the lights across the bridge flickered again. A heavy pulse rolled through the air, like a heartbeat echoing from the human ship. The comms came alive with static, then a voice, low, cold, mechanical, yet hauntingly human. You see. You know. The crew stiffened, their eyes wide with terror. The commander felt the words vibrate in his bones. It was not just sound, it was inside his head, crawling into his thoughts. He gritted his teeth, refusing to flinch. So, it speaks again, he growled, though his voice shook. It wants to frighten us. But the second-in-command spoke in a low voice meant only for the commander. No, sir. It does not want to frighten us. It wants to warn us. The commander stared at the vessel on the viewing screen. Its cannons glowed faintly, like eyes staring into his soul. For the first time, he believed his officer's words. The human ship was warning them, showing them just enough of its power to terrify them. And it had worked. Fear now gripped the entire fleet. Soldiers refused to man their stations. Some prayed, others wept silently. Even the most loyal officers looked pale and broken. The commander slammed his fist down again, roaring at them to hold their courage. But deep down, he knew the truth. The fleet had not broken because of enemy fire. It had broken because of the silence of one human battleship. Suspense grew heavy as the alien fleet hung frozen in the dark, staring at the vessel that was more than steel, more than fire. A ship filled with human minds, a weapon born from the will of warriors who refused to die. The commander's pride cracked as he whispered the words he had never thought he would say. If this is only one ship, then humanity is far more dangerous than we ever imagined. The alien fleet drifted in the endless dark, their ships frozen in place. Fear had already spread like fire. Soldiers whispered of curses, officers struggled to keep order, and even the commander's voice no longer carried the same iron weight. All eyes turned to the human battleship. It floated in silence, but the silence was no longer empty. It was heavy, alive, crushing the hearts of everyone who stared at it. The commander sat stiffly in his chair, claws gripping the armrest. His pride was still strong, but inside, a storm of doubt raged. He had seen many enemies fall before him, but never had his fleet trembled without a single shot fired. Still, he would not retreat. He would not let one human vessel break the honor of his people. His voice snapped like a whip. Prepare another scan. This time, target the ship's core directly. I want every secret it hides. The science crew hesitated, fear in their eyes. One dared to speak. Sir, if we probe deeper, we may trigger a response we cannot control. The commander bared his teeth. Do it. The pulse surged again, a wave of energy stretching into the dark. It touched the human ship's core, and immediately the readings spiked. Numbers shot off the charts, alarms screamed, and data filled the screens faster than anyone could process. The scientists gasped. It's impossible. The energy inside is not mechanical. It is biological. Thousands of human signatures are inside. They are connected, merged with the ship. Another voice whispered, "It is not a warship. It is a war being." Before anyone could react further, the human battleship moved. Slowly, with terrifying purpose, its cannons shifted. Massive barrels glowed faintly, as though a star had been trapped inside. The light was dim, but it was enough to send panic through the fleet. Across the comms, voices cracked with terror. "It's powering weapons. We're finished." The commander's voice boomed across the bridge. "Hold position. It has not fired. Do not break ranks." But even as he shouted, his heart pounded. The glow was not bright enough to signal an attack, but the message was clear. The ship wanted them to see what it could do. Then, the voice came again. It rolled through the comms like thunder, deep, cold, mechanical, yet carrying the echo of human defiance. "Last." The single word struck the fleet like a blade. Every soldier froze. Every officer stiffened. On the flagship bridge, silence pressed down like a weight. The commander's second-in-command whispered, his voice thin. "It means last chance. Last warning. If we push again, it will not hold back." Some of the younger crew broke into open panic. "We must retreat. This is not a fight we can win. That ship, it is alive, it is speaking to us." Fear spread faster now, spilling into every ship of the fleet. Captains argued over comms. Some begged to flee, others cursed the humans, but none dared to act first. The commander rose from his chair, his voice a roar meant to silence chaos. "Enough. We are the greatest fleet in the galaxy. We do not cower before one vessel." His words shook the air, but they no longer carried the same fire. He could see the truth in his crew's eyes. They were not listening to him. They were listening to their fear. The human battleship loomed larger on the viewing screen. Its cannons remained glowing, but no fire came. Instead, the silence grew heavier, darker, as if the ship was measuring them, judging them. It did not rush. It did not panic. It simply waited, calm and patient, like a predator watching prey decide whether to run. The commander clenched his fists. His pride told him to order an attack, to unleash the full might of his fleet on the lone human ship. But deep inside, instinct screamed at him. One wrong move, and his armada would be ash. His claws trembled as he stared at the silent warship. He knew the truth. This was not a battle. This was a test. On the outer edges of the fleet, small ships began to pull back. Captains ignored orders, choosing survival over loyalty. Their engines flared as they drifted away from the human vessel. The commander roared in rage. "Return to position or be executed." But no one obeyed. Fear had broken the chain of command. The second-in-command stepped closer, his pale eyes steady. His voice was calm but filled with warning. "Sir, if we push again, The fleet will not survive. We have already seen its power without a single shot. Imagine what it can do when it fights." The commander's throat tightened. Pride and fear warred inside him, but even his pride could not ignore the truth. He turned slowly back to the screen, his eyes locked on the dark, silent battleship. "It is not fighting us," he whispered. "It is warning us." The word last burned in his mind like fire. Last warning. Last chance. Last breath. He finally understood. The human ship had chosen to let them live. For now. Suspense hung heavy in the air. The alien fleet was frozen, trapped between pride and survival, staring at a ship that seemed less like a machine and more like a god of war. The commander's claws dug into his chair as he spoke the words he never thought he would say. "Stand down. Maintain distance. Do not provoke it again." His officers looked at him in shock, but none argued. In their hearts, they already knew this was the only choice. The human battleship was no longer a target. It was a nightmare, and it was watching them still. The alien fleet was no longer calm, and fear had begun to spread through every deck. But the commander tried to hold his officers together as they watched the human battleship glowing faintly against the darkness of space, and the sense that the ship was alive became stronger with every passing second, because now their sensors picked up strange energy pulses coming from the hull, but none of the readings made sense to their science teams, who argued among themselves in panic, some claiming it was impossible, others saying it was a form of technology far beyond anything they had seen before, and still others whispering that the humans had hidden weapons no one in the galaxy knew about, while deep inside the battleship, lights flickered like eyes opening, and though the aliens could not hear it, the ship gave off a faint hum that carried across the void, a sound that made even the most experienced warriors on the alien flagship feel cold inside, as if the human ship was aware of them, studying them, judging them, and the commander slammed his fist on the console demanding answers. But his science officer admitted with trembling words that the ship systems were no longer in their control, because the human battleship had somehow hacked their scanners during the first probe, and now the alien flagship itself was bleeding information, its data flowing toward the silent human vessel like water rushing down a drain. And the commander froze when he realized that every military secret, every fleet code, every weapon design might already be inside human hands, and for the first time he truly understood the danger of underestimating this species. For if they could steal knowledge with a single scan, what else could they do? But worse than that, one of the younger officers screamed as the star maps on their main display twisted and reshaped into something new, a web of red lines and blinking signals that no alien system had created. Yet there it was, projected across the fleet's shared screens, showing dozens of red points all around them, and the officer stammered out the words that chilled them all. "They are human warships. All of them, and they are already here." But before anyone could respond, the red points began to flicker brighter, each one marking an incoming ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel, and soon the empty space around the alien fleet was no longer empty, because the humans had arrived, their warships appearing like shadows out of the void, silent, precise, and with a discipline that showed they had been waiting for this moment all along, and the alien commander shouted for the fleet to ready weapons. But before his order was finished, the first human ship moved, not with guns, but with a calm voice that entered every alien bridge through hacked communications, a voice cold and steady, saying, "We asked you not to look inside our house, and yet you did." And then silence, followed by the quiet power of human warships, surrounding them in a perfect formation, and the alien crews, once mocking the humans as primitive, now realized they were the ones being studied, and the fear in their hearts told them something even worse than battle might be coming, because humans did not look like conquerors in that moment. They looked like predators who had trapped their prey, and every alien aboard knew in their bones that the nightmare was only beginning. The alien commander's voice cracked as he ordered his fleet to open fire, but the truth was clear on every face across the bridge. Fear had already taken them, and when their weapons lit up, streaks of blue and white energy rushing toward the nearest human ship, something unthinkable happened, because the blasts never hit, instead vanishing into ripples of invisible shields that bent the light around them, like stones thrown into water. And the alien crews gasped as their most powerful cannons proved useless, but worse came a heartbeat later, when the human ship did not fire back, not yet, instead releasing a silent wave that spread across the alien fleet, shutting down engines, turning off weapons, and filling every screen with static, as if humanity was reminding them that fighting was pointless. Yet the commander roared with desperation, shouting for his crews to reboot systems, demanding resistance, because surrender to a younger species was a humiliation too great to accept, and in that moment some ships managed to break through the interference, firing again, this time at random, but the humans moved with impossible precision, their ships gliding in perfect unison like a single organism, avoiding blasts that would have destroyed slower vessels, and then finally, the humans answered, not with a storm of fire, but with surgical strikes, beams of light that tore through engines, weapons, and shields with cold efficiency, never targeting crew compartments, as though making a deliberate choice to disable, not slaughter, and the aliens felt the sting of that restraint, because being spared in battle was more terrifying than being destroyed, as if the humans were saying, "We could end you, but we choose not to, remember that," and panic spread through the alien ranks, junior officers crying out, captains begging for orders, while across the void the humans remained silent, letting their actions speak louder than threats, and then the alien commander realized, with horror, that half his fleet was already crippled, drifting powerless, while the rest were being herded into tighter and tighter space by human maneuvers, until the stars themselves felt like a cage, and for the first time in his long career he wondered if his people had awoken something they could never put back to sleep. But still his pride burned, and with trembling hands he tried one last desperate tactic, ordering a suicide run, a massive battleship charging directly at the human flagship, engines overloaded to turn it into a weapon of living fire, but even that failed, because the moment the ship reached critical speed, its systems died, every light, every engine, every weapon, and the ship simply drifted, powerless, as though unseen hands had plucked the rage from it, and the commander finally understood. The humans weren't just fighting with ships, they were fighting with knowledge, with control, with a mastery of war that no alien mind had even considered. And then, when the silence was at its deepest, the human voice returned over comms, steady and final, saying only, "Go home. Tell your leaders the galaxy is not yours to claim." Not while humanity walks among the stars, and with that, the human fleet began to withdraw, vanishing back into the dark as quickly as they had come, leaving the alien armada broken, humiliated, and trembling in the cold of space, knowing the balance of power in the galaxy had changed forever.